$50 or $150 an hour cleaning? How much more profit can you make if you're making more money per hour? Now, this applies to carpet cleaning, maid services, pressure washers, all types of cleaning companies, and your numbers can vary. Everybody's numbers are going to vary, but just letting you know that I did a couple of things. Last week, I gave everyone a monthly expenses hypothetical situation of a typical two-truck, fairly profitable cleaning company. And you can get the link to that below this video if you haven't gotten that yet. But I highly recommend that you do this first, because you need to figure out what your cost per hour is, what your cost to do business is. If you don't, then you can never really know what your profit is and where your profit is at. So we gave you this spreadsheet, and again, this is based on a two-truck company that's fairly profitable. In this case, there's at least one technician, cleaning technician, full-time. There's also a full-time office assistant. Your prices are going to vary for all of this. So again, your job is to just put your actual expenses in here. Now, here's what I highly recommend, though, with this sheet. Possibly you might not have health insurance currently. Well, still put in a number there because you should have health insurance. You might not have a line of credit. Well, that's great actually if you don't, but if you don't, put in a number there maybe for savings, to save up for when trucks break down or there is a huge expense. You might not have the office assistant. Again, maybe you can eliminate that part. You probably should have a bookkeeper. All of this stuff is stuff that you should have in here on some level, unless you don't actually have that employee that you're taking up. Maybe you don't have workman's comp. Well, you should have it. Add that expense in there. You should be marketing to past clients. You should be advertising to new clients. You should be doing all of this stuff if you want to grow and have a profitable business. Now, the other point with this too is maybe you don't actually have a van payment. Okay, and that's listed on here, like right here, you don't have an equipment payment. That's fine. Still put a number there, because guess what? Even if you have paid off equipment, that equipment's going to die. Give it a little bit of time. That equipment is going to die, and you're going to need to replace it. So you need to be putting money toward that. That expense needs to be in there. Even if you paid off all of your auto insurance at the beginning of the year, all that number needs to be in here. So based on this company, the actual cost to do business on a given average month is $14,520. Now again, this is just based on a two-truck average company with a office assistant and a technician. Now what you need to do after you figure out your monthly expense, and be as honest as you can with this. You're not helping anyone by thinking that, oh, well, I don't have that, so cell phones basically are part of your phones, by the way. That should be considered in here. Internet, even if it's part of your home, you should be considering part of that as part of here. So you want to take this cost and actually divide that entire cost of you doing business by the amount of hours that you were out cleaning. Now, if you have a truck mounted machine, that's kind of easy to do sometimes because you can just gauge the hours on your truck mount. If you're another type of business where you don't have that, it's, you can just gauge it by the amount of hours actually spent at the customer's home. That's really not the drive time, not everything else, but the actual hours at the customer's home. So in this case, $14,520, an estimated amount of hours, $170 for a two-truck company. That's about normal. Sometimes it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but we're just kind of getting averages here, giving you guys some ideas. So what you want to do is take your expenses, divide it by the amount of hours that you clean, and that is your cost to do business. And the funny thing is, especially if you're a company that has a assistant in the office, if you a lead technician, that's working for you and you're not actually on the truck, your numbers for cost are probably in the $80, $90 an hour range, maybe even more. Now, if you're in the lower numbers, you're probably doing your owner operator, you're the one on the truck, you don't have an office assistant, that type of thing. But the problem is, don't kid yourself that that's the best place to stay, because it may or may not be, and I don't know. That's not really the discussion here. But also realize that usually when your cost is lower per hour, you usually aren't making as much per hour because the fact that you're working by yourself, or because of the fact, and your situation might be different. I'm not going to say that's the case, but just realize that there are gives and takes about this type of thing. For me, it was that I wanted to be off on Saturday. I didn't want to work on Saturday. I wanted to be able to take vacations and have technicians actually out doing work, because we couldn't just shut down business for a week while I went to Disney World, right? This kind of stuff needed to happen, and I knew that needed to happen, so I needed to arrange for this. So that's all stuff to keep in mind. So what you need to do is first figure out your cost, and then you want to turn around and figure out what your actual dollar amount per hour is. How much are you actually making per hour on average? And here's just a simple way to do that. You take the total amount of your sales and divide it by the number of hours that you were cleaning. And you already have the number of hours, right? And now you're taking your total amount of sales. And for this type of company, typical amount of sales, we would hope maybe that it would be some a little bit more than this. And a lot of months it probably is. But let's just say for purposes of an even number, it's $20,000 in sales. And their cost was $14,520. So what's going on here is it's $20,000 in sales divided by the number of hours cleaning. So their actual amount that they're making per hour cleaning is $117. And again, this is fairly typical, but I'm not going to say that that's everybody. I don't know what yours is. This is based on a lot of the numbers that I've seen in my own company through the years, but also through other companies that I work with. This is pretty average kind of, pretty typical kind of numbers. So $117 an hour is the actual cost, or the actual amount that you're actually making per hour. So then you're going to take the 117 and divide that by 85, and let me get out my calculator. I know it's kind of ridiculous, but while I'm doing a video, it's kind of hard. Okay, $32 an hour profit is what this company, based on these numbers, is making. So every hour that they're out cleaning, they're making $32 of actual profit. Now, here's the thing though. If their numbers as far as their prices weren't high enough, this is based on they're charging probably amongst the higher prices in town. If they're not high enough, it might only be in the $18,000 range, right? Maybe they only did $18,000 in sales. Their cost stayed the same. Their cost is still $85 per hour to do that business. So $18,000 in sales would mean they're only making $105. So that's only $20 an hour profit. So you see how your profit just totally gets demolished just instantly by your amount of sales. So you have to have the sales up. You have to know what your dollar amount per hour is based on how much time it's going to take you to do that job. And especially with commercial, you really have to bid it based on the time that you think it's going to take you, not based on the square footage as much. That needs to be taken into consideration, but largely how much time you think that job is going to take you. You have to keep all of this in account. So, for instance, here we've got a couple of hypotheticals. Maybe the company that's only making $40 an hour, their cost is only $40 an hour. Chances are they're not quite in the $100 to $150 an hour range for the amount of sales, but they could be. And again, if that's you, great. That's great. That's awesome. But normally it's going to be in the $50 to $100 an hour. So if it's 50, they're only making $10 an hour profit. Well, let's say they raised their prices a little bit. Let's say they worked quite a bit and concentrated on raising their prices. Now they're making $60 an hour profit, right? So they 6 times their profit. Now, if they weren't doing that well, and I've seen this situation too, unfortunately, and then here, if their cost to do business is $40, and they are only doing $50 an hour in actual cleaning, they're only making $10 an hour profit. So that's 3 times less than this other guy here. That's more than 3 times less, right? Maybe now it's actually costing them $40 to do the business, and now, or maybe it's costing $60 an hour to do the business, and they're only making $50 an hour. This can happen too, very easily, guys. That means they're losing $10 an hour for every hour that they're out there cleaning. So you need to know your numbers. You have to know what your costs are to do business. You have to know how much profit you need to make to be able to bid these type of jobs. And always be thinking about this once a year, twice a year, 3 times a year or so. Sit down, do these numbers, really think about, 1, what are my costs? Am I making any money? But then 2, how can I actually make more profit? Profit's really the important thing. Again, it's not the only thing that money's not the only thing. I'm not saying that, but profit in business, in your business, is really the most important thing going on, because if you don't have profit, you're not in business anymore. It's done. It's over. You're closing your doors. So you have to know what these numbers are. You have to think about profit. And then 2, you have to think about like repeat clients, because repeat clients a lot of the times take so much less time to serve in the service business and the cleaning business, for crying out loud. Repeat clients are all where it's at. So that's why you really have to think about, how can I get more repeat clients coming back in? That's why I'm always talking to you guys about mailing postcards, about sending emails, about doing remarketing campaigns. to your past clients, client newsletters, everything that you can do. Super, super important, because when you can keep that past client, now instead of spending 2 hours at that particular job, you might could come in and out and only spend an hour and a half. And now your profit is could be literally doubled over something like that because it was a repeat client. Right, because you don't have that cost of the things we looked at in that particular case of the advertising. The advertising is now getting other new clients, not particularly that current client. And by the way, it's a lot cheaper to market back to your past client than it is to market to a brand new client. For sure, all day long, any marketing expert is going to tell you that. That's why one of the big reasons why I tell you that. So, what are the takeaways here? One, figure out your numbers. Figure out what it costs you to do business. I don't know. Again, these are hypotheticals based on real world numbers. I don't know what your cost is. Figure out that cost. Figure out, too, after you know what that is, how can you increase that profit per hour? How can you increase that profit per hour? That's what it's about. And it's not always about shaving off things. Sometimes it is, by the way. But if you're shaving off things, I highly recommend that you not try to shave off things like marketing or advertising. I recommend that you not try to shave off things like things that really make your customer happy, right? Might it be that you vacuum before you get cleaning, or whatever the case may be. Realize what your customers enjoy. Do surveys, and don't cut those type of things out. Spend a lot of time on this all the time, and you'll make more profit. Concentrate on it.